I'm super excited to see Will Howard, and I can't believe like just my thought process actually happened for him to end up on Ohio State, and I think it's just a perfect match. And it's hard pressed for me to say that with him under center that they couldn't win the national championship. That's just my 2 cents. Will Howard, out of nobody's surprise here, but maybe the rest of the world's, surprise, wow. He has been named the starter for Ohio State. I love this. I think they're going to have a good time. So let me just jump on my soapbox real quick, because I've been pounding the rock for this to happen ever since the transfer portal, and now it's here. My boy Will Howard is the starter of Ohio State. Now, if we go back to the transfer portal days, and if you haven't heard this story, we're doing this for the clip. We're doing this for the clip on YouTube, for those that don't know. But just to reiterate, when there was a lot of people in the transfer portal, including a couple other quarterbacks, I thought with his skill set that he was the best one that could take Ohio State to the next level. If I had to look at, how gutsy Kyle McCord tried to play and it wasn't successful, but the way of how gutsy Will Howard was when he was at Kansas State and how successful that was even better. Now, the stats last year, something that is not all that fantastic. 2,600 yards, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 75.1 QBR. But the thing about Will Howard is you can't measure, like I always tell people, go watch the Texas game and tell me if you feel differently about Will Howard. And I think that you will by all accounts, right? So one thing about him is where him and Devin Brown are very similar is the way that Will Howard played early in his days with Kansas State is exactly the same way that Devin Howard does play right now. But I want to throw a little statistic in there that nobody really likes to, give him his flowers for. 351 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns. And like I said, when you look at his earlier stats, he almost had over 900 yards all together with Kansas as far as his rushing statistics were. And the first couple of years, they used him a lot in the way that Ohio State likes to use Devin Brown, is they like to pull him into a lot of gadget plays and things like that. And that's how Will Howard was used. So it's kind of funny that they were in a quarterback competition with just, those two. And the one thing about Devin Brown, and if he wanted to pull out anything, is he didn't look good against Western Kentucky when they played. He didn't look good against Mizzou when they played, and he didn't look good against Youngstown State, which is an FCS school, which that's of course a team that you want to go out there and smash. For the couple of passes that he did come in the games for. I do remember against Western Kentucky when I went back and was watching the film on a couple of players in the draft season, that when he had came in and he played against Western Kentucky, I don't think he really understands how to throw the ball in an arc, past the offensive line. Like, he's still throwing it into the offensive line where the defensive line is knocking it down. It was a terrible interception. But, if you look at things like that and see what you have with Devin Brown, and if he hasn't in practice, elevated his level of play, somebody like Will Howard is definitely going to come in the game and make it a lot harder on him to get the starting position. But out of everybody, I think Ryan Day, I don't think he has to coach to make him better. I think what Ryan Day has to do is allow Chip Kelly to open up the running game, kind of like what had happened with CJ Stroud when he was with Ohio State, where Ohio State, they were able to run successful play action and things like that all the time. And now that they got a lot of people were claiming, and by all regards, have at it, have your fun with Travion Henderson and now picking up Quinshon Judkins is definitely going to open up the pass game and allow him to be more successful. And, he's got a slew of wide receivers. We've named them time and time again, but, Emeka Egbuka and the boys are going to absolutely eat. And I think what you're going to see with kind of like his athleticism is a lot what we've seen out of CJ Stroud as well. So I'm, by all regards.
I mean, boys. Will Howard is, he's going to thrive in the system, especially if you're looking at a Chip Kelly style offense. He loves to use quarterback runs in general. Mm-hmm. And we saw what he did at Kansas State. We know what he's capable of. I think he's probably going to have more rushing yards this year under Chip Kelly than he did in the previous 4 years at Kansas. Well, not altogether, but you know what I'm saying in general. I think this is going to work out for the better. I still think Ohio State's one of the best teams in the country. We all saw this coming. As soon as Will Howard got to Ohio State, we knew that he was going to be the starter.
I forgot where I was and what I was doing, but I can tell you I dropped everything and I zoned in once they said they got Will Howard. I could tell you that much.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like
dropped to his knees in the middle of the target.
That's it.
Like I feel like there's going to be like
this cannot
see
be.
like shades of like when Justin Fields was at Ohio State, just a little bit of that, but
a little bit.
It's the perfect fit. Like is exactly what they need right now, and they're going to dominate teams this year, point blank.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting with Will Howard because you look at it of pretty much kind of like you mentioned, he kept Kansas State all throughout that Texas game, and it was a lot of O-line failure. I mean, we did a film review over it, so it was a lot of O-line failure. I think on top of it, you have Chip Kelly as your offensive coordinator. And with all the weapons you already had, like, again, we mentioned Echezobukah,
Brandon Ennis.
Yeah. I'm trying to Jeremiah Smith. Thank you. I keep wanting to say Evan Stewart. I'm like, that was the previous year. But yeah, you've got
Evan Stewart was Texas A&M, right?
Yeah. Well, both of them were the number one wide receivers in their respective class. So that's literally the only reason why I keep mixing that. And also both of them almost went to Florida, but that's the point. But so you've got them on top of that. But again, with Chip Kelly, who is known for having a great rushing offense, you add Quinshawn Judkins. If you thought he was OP in NCAA 25, that's just a taste of what's going to happen in real life. I think Ohio State's in a pretty good situation right now. There's more, which is weird to say, there's more structural integrity right now, for lack of a better term. Michigan, we don't know what's happening. Some of the other big threats, Penn State, what's Drew Lohr going to look like? You know, can Katron Allen and Nick Singleton be the best running back duo that we've been saying they could potentially be? You know, Oregon, we all up here think they're going to be good. Potentially they'll be in the national championship, but they're moving to a new conference. So what's that going to look like with Dillon Gabriel? So I think out of everybody here, Ohio State on paper right now is set up to have the most success because they're not moving to a new conference. They're not having, you know, coaching troubles, right? Well, okay, besides Ryan, but like they're not having, you know, the coaching troubles that Michigan's having right now, having to deal with potential suspensions, all that stuff. They didn't lose a lot of guys in the draft, you know. So I think in the long run, this is a very good move for Ohio State. And again, ever since he went there, we've been saying that it was going to be him, despite the fact that the reports were saying like, oh, it could be Devin Brown, which should have never been a report. And Ryan Day should have learned his lesson after the whole like, I don't know, is it going to be Kyle McCord or Devin Brown? Everybody was saying it should have been Devin Brown. He's like, no, we're going to go with Kyle McCord instead. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. I think Ohio State's going to be really good this year, as per usual.
Yeah. I mean, they lost a lot, but then I can't really backpedal and say that they haven't been good in their wide receiver core. I think probably the biggest one that I think that you're going to see the biggest impact from is, of course, Cade Stover.
Yeah.
But I think where they lack in maybe a little bit more of a blocking ability, they gain with a Quinshawn Judkins that can do it all too. So I don't know, man. Chip Kelly's creative, so we're definitely not going to see what Brian Hartline was doing versus an experienced offensive coach like Chip Kelly.
Exactly.
So, you know, keep doing your thing, Brian. You're the best wide receiver recruiting guy in the country, and it's not close. I mean, you could just go down the line: Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr. Who else is out there? Chris Olave.
Chris Olave. I said Garrett Wilson.
That's 4 first rounders right there that I just named. That
freaking phenomenal talent.
That's nasty work. Dana says
Wilson was
stability
a last or a first rounder as well. Okay.
and continuity has a positive effect, certainly. Yeah, I think they're going to be freaking awesome. And I'm almost disappointed because I think a lot of us we're timid because I think there's a lot of talent on other teams, but maybe when we get to our 12-team playoff, maybe we are just shelving them a little bit more than what we actually actually don't need to be. I think they might be the number one team.